97.1 FM Talk.
On demand audio.
Good Friday morning. Glad you're back with us here on the Marc Cox Morning Show. By the way, if you follow us on Facebook, the Marc Cox Show on Facebook, we are streaming live right now, so you can go there as well. We have former Missouri Governor Eric Greitens in studio with us this morning, fresh off this report from the Missouri Ethics Commission. Good morning to you.
Mark, great to be on with you, and thank you for the good intro music. It always gets everybody started. You got a little good intro music, a little good coffee in the morning. It's cold, but we can make it a good morning. So
we
thanks,
do what we can. We try to keep people awake here in the mornings. That can be a challenge sometimes,
I think
right?
We're going to be all right here.
Absolutely.
All right.
That's good. You had a good day yesterday because this Missouri Ethics Commission report, you know, people who don't get in the weeds of this every day like we do probably don't understand what a big deal this was, but there's a reason all of these allegations that were piled on took 18, 20 months to finally reach some sort of conclusion, and you're there under a cloud the whole time.
Yeah, this was a really, really good day, and it feels really good to have been exonerated. And like you said, this was an exhaustive investigation, and at the end of it, they said that they found no evidence of any wrongdoing by Eric Greitens. And I was really glad that the report came out. I was glad to be vindicated. I'm glad and grateful that the truth is now out. And yeah, it feels really good, man.
So, you know, you watch the different headlines. It's funny to see how different media outlets played this. The Post-Dispatch convicted you. I think maybe a couple of the TV stations had headlines that said Greitens found guilty of campaign violations. You know, instead of pointing out that Lewis Reed, the president of the Board of Aldermen, was found guilty of not reporting some in-kind contributions. Megan Green, who's running for Senate, she's a city alderman. She was found guilty of the same. Her campaign was found guilty of the same thing. This is a wrist slap that the Missouri Ethics Commission hands out pretty routinely.
Well, here's the insanity, which I think like all of your listeners are going to get, is that people might go back and you remember where we were at, like in when all of these vicious and false allegations were being made. You had people saying, we have documents proving criminal fraud. We have documents showing that Eric Greitens' book, Resilience, was a literary fraud, that they had foreign donors, that they tried to conceal donations. There was this relentless stream of false allegations. And then the Missouri Ethics Commission finally gives us due process. And I mean, I think it's important for people to remember those allegations came out of a process where people held these Stalin-esque secret hearings where witnesses could come in and lie. We weren't even allowed to have lawyers present. So then you have these lawyer politicians make all of these false allegations. And after 20 months, the Missouri Ethics Commission says we issued 23 subpoenas. Our investigators did over 20 interviews. They went through over 8,500 multi-page documents, emails, and videos. And at the end of all of that, they said very clearly, and they put it right up top, they said, we found no evidence of any wrongdoing by Eric Greitens. And they also said for, yes, these two wrist slap reporting things, even there they said, and it's very clear that Governor Greitens did not know about these two mistakes. And then you have, but you actually, like credit to like, there are some like serious reporters, and even CNN like got the story right. Right. Even CNN, you had a reporter who wrote the whole thing up and said, because she went back and looked, where did this start? And she said, this is amazing. You know, at the end of 20 months after all of this, there's no evidence of any wrongdoing. So yeah, man, it feels really good to have been exonerated.
I bet it does. You know, and you mentioned this a minute ago. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but all of these ethics complaints happened after you had resigned, correct? Didn't this all come at about the same time?
Yeah, they dumped this giant report on the Missouri Ethics Commission after I had resigned. So keep in mind, yeah, I mean, look, it's normal for like your listeners and other people, like we go back and it can be confusing.
Right.
What really kicked this off was that you had a George Soros-funded prosecutor in Kim Gardner who brought charges that she knew were false. And we now know that she knew they were false. And we've seen her lead investigator has been charged with 7 felonies for lying under oath, tampering with evidence. So she brings this charge, and then the Missouri House starts again this, crazy hearing system where they have secret hearings. And you can't have lawyers present. You can't defend yourself in any way. And at the end of all of that, then they go out and make this wild series of reckless allegations. Again, I said like fraud and all this stuff. And then at the end of all of this craziness, you say no evidence of any wrongdoing. We're completely exonerated. And I want to say, Mark, like this is good. It's obviously, it feels good for me personally, of course, but this also, like when they do this stuff, it rips apart lives, like not just mine. Like, there was a colleague of mine who worked on this campaign. All right. And she like worked her heart out. She talked to volunteers and supporters and people all over the state. She was recently married. Her name gets dragged through the mud. All of these false allegations. She has to hire a lawyer to deal with all of these subpoenas, tens of thousands of dollars in legal bills. She and her husband thought that they were going to lose their house. And I don't think that like the average person knows, because they're not exposed to like how vicious and nasty these people are. And now we know, look, this was a criminal effort to drive us from office. All of these allegations were false. So yes, it feels good for me. But it's not just about me. Like this was about trying to drive me from office, and there were a lot of people who were hurt by this.
Right, and the thing to me as I look at it, we're talking to former Missouri Governor Eric Greitens here. If you're just tuning in, and we're also live on Facebook, there was almost a vindictive. Well, there was a vindictiveness to how this was piled. The word concealing donors was used 5 or 6 different times in these complaints that they dumped on the Ethics Commission. Almost like they're trying to put a boot on your throat now that you're already down. What do you do about it? Let's name names. I mean, it was Jay Barnes who filed these complaints, right? What do you do now?
It was him who filed these complaints. Well, one of the things that people will notice, and I would encourage everybody who's really interested, you can go out and read it yourself.
Right.
Go
it's
out
there.
Read it for yourself. Read on the very first page where they go through this extensive thing and they say found no evidence of any wrongdoing, and then read it for yourself and then compare some of the press coverage. Right. You get to read it yourself. But yeah, so you have these guys who do this, and one of the things why I would encourage people to read it themselves is that they put something in this stipulation, which at least I've never seen before, where they said, something like, it's legal language, but like it's Eric Greitens and his heirs and successors, Greitens for Missouri. But it also says, and all affected parties maintain all of their civil and criminal remedies. Because this didn't just hurt me. It hurt a lot of people. And some of them are thinking about actually filing a lawsuit.
Just in terms of dollars,
yeah.
For example, what does it cost to defend yourself against something like this?
So just my campaign. This is just my campaign dollars for all of these false allegations, $1.3 million. $1.3 million from all of these false allegations. And again, Mark, that's not so when the Missouri Ethics Commission says we issued 23 subpoenas and our investigators did over 20 interviews, those people who are being interviewed, they then go and have to hire lawyers, right? So you're talking about a tremendous amount of wreckage that all comes from these false and reckless allegations that people pour out. And it's one of the other things that I think a lot of people don't get is that when they're attacking me using your tax dollars. They use people's tax money to actually go after people who they disagree with, and it was campaign dollars for the Missouri Ethics Commission stuff when they're talking about the campaign. But when Kim Gardner attacks me, when I have to have my lawyers go and fight this is coming out of my pocket. That's my kids' college tuition, right? Every single day that gets hammered. And that's why they do this. A buddy of mine is a Navy SEAL, former Secretary of the Interior, Ryan Zinke, right? You might know him. Ryan had to deal with the same thing. I was just talking to him the other day. Just all of these allegations like poured on him. He's like, dude, I'm 11 for 11. He's like, I was innocent of all of these things. He said, but like I spent my life as a Navy SEAL, and now here I'm paying, in his case, he's like, it's like $50K a week in lawyer's fees. Like, what am I going to do? So this is a weapon that they use to attack outsiders. It is a weapon that they use to attack people who are a threat to the system. And what I'm so glad about now is that, look, we've been completely exonerated, and it's important that people see this for what it is.
For what it is. And we're going to continue talking about that. Missouri Governor Eric Greitens, my guest in studio this morning. There's clearly a political toll to all this. There's also a personal side of this that I want to ask the governor about when we get back. Back live in the studio with former Missouri Governor Eric Greitens, fresh off this MEC report that has cleared him of just a litany of false allegations about his campaign and donations and dark donor lists. And I mean, the allegations just went on and on about you trying to allegedly hide who was donating to your campaign.
They made up on a crazy series of allegations. I mean, you might even remember, I was texting this morning with my buddy, Drew Sheets, who's a Navy SEAL with me. He's the guy who I wrote the letters to in the Resilience book. One of the allegations was that the book was a literary fraud. Now, Drew's wife, when the reporter called her, she said, "These letters saved my husband's life. Please write about that." And then she looks at the story where you have these lawyer politicians making false accusations. And she said, it's just crazy making. Like they literally write stuff that they know is false. But having said that, Mark, maybe one of the things I'd love to just say is, so my buddy Drew, who I was there for him when things were really hard, he was and has been there for me. And one of the things I want to say also to the folks who are listening out there, I am so grateful. There's so many people who have been so kind. Like literally every time I stop to pump gas or I'm in the grocery store or at a restaurant, like people come up and they are so kind. And I am really, really grateful for that.
When you resigned from office and left, you very publicly took a step back out of the public eye.
Yeah.
People didn't know where you were, what you were doing. Talk for a moment about the personal toll this took on you, your family, your kids.
Well, look, this is it's tremendously hard. It is tremendously hard. And it's what they do is that they don't just target you. Like that would be, one thing. I'd be happy to die in a good fight. They go after everybody who you love. I mean, the reason why they do this, like we're talking about a little bit before the break, is that they try to bankrupt your family, right? They try to create a situation where you're looking at millions, tens of millions of dollars in debt for the rest of your life. That's the choice that you have to make. They write vicious, nasty stories, and they try and rip your life apart. I mean, I remember, there's this crazy moment where I knew all of this stuff was false, and you have a Soros-funded prosecutor who makes you come down and have your mugshot taken. Okay? And I've got a nephew who was, I guess he was probably 11 years old at the time. And I'm his hero. I'm Uncle Eric, the Navy SEAL, and we go out and do all of these adventures and have all this fun. And then, here you have to, call your nephew and explain to him this craziness. And this is what they try and do. They try to just really rip apart at your family. And it's awful. I think what is nice now, though, is that people have started to see what they do. I mean, keep in mind, people forget, what happened to me, that all happened before, the Brett Kavanaugh hearings.
Right.
Right? And everybody saw, that same kind of playbook. It happened before we knew about the Russia collusion hoax. It happened before the, fake, Ukraine Pelosi-driven impeachment. And now I think people are wiser to this, but this is the game that this is their playbook, and they use it to just viciously attack people. And it has an impact on family. It has an impact on friends. And like I said, it's not just me. It's it's all of these other people who like signed up to do good stuff because they wanted to help kids in foster care, because they wanted to support police, because they wanted to do good things for the state, and they do this, and it just has an awful emotional toll.
So clearly you feel vindicated now after this. What's next? There's been a lot of speculation, rampant speculation about Eric Greitens running for governor again to get that seat back. Have you thought about that?
Yeah, one of the things that's happened, like, since the day we left, is that we have been, like, bombarded with sort of questions like, hey, what are you going to do next? Or will you give a political comment on this or that or whatever? And we have purposefully, as you noted, like, kind of pulled back. I'm doing my work with the Navy Reserve. I'm doing some other things that I really, really love and care about. And today, especially, like, as this story of our complete exoneration comes out, I really want the focus to be there. I want to make sure that that story is told. I want my sons, when they grow up, to know that we were completely exonerated.
It's important for that story to get out, and for people to understand, Governor, that in the background of all this, Kim Gardner is still in court facing allegations of mishandling the case against you.
Well, you're right. There's already 7 felony charges against her investigator, who she hired, who she supervised. And keep in mind, George Soros funded 70+% of Kim Gardner's campaign. All right. And, the left won't cover this. Like, this is a fact. 70+% of her campaign funds came from one political action committee. That political action committee had one donor. That was George Soros. So, yes, you've got a Soros-funded prosecutor. Her lead investigator has already been indicted on 7 felonies, and she is still under criminal investigation herself. And it is good now that people know that. It's good that they know that we have been completely exonerated, and I'm just glad that the truth is coming out.
Well, I know there's more to come on that story,
yes.
and I'm looking forward to that when it happens. Hopefully, we can get you back in here to address that when it
happy
does.
to, absolutely.
We appreciate that. Former Missouri Governor Eric Greitens, thank you for your time this morning. Thank you for your honesty.
Thank you.
Get more at 971talk.com.